Some big Starfield news. Bethesda has already released a patch for Starfield. This is from Bethesda Game Studios' official Twitter, X. Kind of feels weird to say. I won't read all of it as most of it is just Bethesda thanking the community for its support, but a couple things I want to highlight here that I feel bodes well for the Starfield community. The first thing is the patch came out September 13th and it mostly contains quality of life updates as shown here on the screen. And these include brightness and contrast controls, HDR calibration menu, FOV slider, NVIDIA DLSS support, 32:9 ultra-wide monitor support, and the eat button for food. To some people, this might not be the most exciting news, but hear me out here. The fact they're releasing patches fairly quickly, Starfield came out September 6th, and around 7 days later, they're patching the game. I do believe this is a good sign, but I say this with a caveat. Unless the game is really broken on release, which I don't think Starfield is, but I do admit that after playing it so far, that it does have room for improvement. Like some of the facial animations are questionable at times,
my face is tired.
But I don't really think any game will ever be perfect, and we as gamers just have to push back to keep the standard high for games being done when they come out. The next thing I want to highlight here is that it appears Bethesda Game Studios is embracing the mod community, with them acknowledging here on their official page that full support for modding is planned to launch early next year for PC. Additionally, we're working on built-in mod support, creations that will work across all platforms, similar to what we've done with Skyrim and Fallout 4. This full support is planned to launch early next year. I think at face value this is a good thing. It's a great way to get the Starfield community more involved, and it will give Starfield some more shelf life long term. I will say though that I hope in the future they add mod support to consoles, similar to how they did it for Skyrim later on, hopefully sooner rather than later, as I felt it was a little late to the party for the Skyrim console mod support. It doesn't really affect me too much personally because I have a PC and Xbox, but I know not everyone has both, so I'd like to see this on the console as well. Nonetheless, this is a plus for me. Moving on to the next part I want to mention, that they seem to be receptive to the idea of city maps being added to the game, and this seems to be highly requested by the fans, and here it reads from Bethesda, even though we don't get your requests immediately, we'd love to do it in the future, like city maps. Our priority initially is making sure any top blocker bugs or stability issues are addressed, and adding quality of life features that many are asking for. So it seems they're prioritizing quality of life first, and I kind of respect this approach. Prioritizing a game's stability first and then add game content after. I think this shows they have a long-term vision for Starfield, and I like what I'm hearing. And then the last thing I kind of want to highlight here is their welcoming feedback. Keep the feedback coming. We really do read it all, and thank you all again for taking this journey with us. I think it's great they're listening to the community, but now they have to show us with action, which they're off to a good start. To me, Starfield has a lot of potential, especially if they stay on top of things. They just need to lock it in and stay focused. So to summarize it all up, I think Bethesda has positioned themselves in a good spot with Starfield. It does appear for the time being that Bethesda is all hands in to support Starfield with a long-term game plan. This is great to see, and this appears like a nice rebound for Bethesda. After a string of some disappointing games from them in recent years and re-releasing Skyrim 10 million times, I think as long as they continue to listen to fans, take action, and all in a timely manner, then I think they have a great chance to salvage their fleeting reputation and cement Starfield as one of the greats and a long-term success for them. In other news, apparently the Steam Deck is due for a big update that makes it more compatible with running Starfield. This is according to TheVerge.com. It reads, Valve's next major SteamOS 3.5 update brings some significant new display settings as well as some new performance improvements to Steam Deck. Two major new features are support for variable refresh rates, VRR, and HDR, and if you're using the Steam Deck with supported hardware. It goes on to read, the update includes updated graphic drivers with many performance and functionality improvements. Valve says the update brings improved performance for Starfield. Bethesda's excellent space RPG isn't verified for Steam Deck, but that hasn't stopped people from playing the game on the handheld gaming PC anyway. I think this is great from someone who personally owns a Steam Deck myself. While Steam Deck is a great idea, I think it could definitely use some updates, in particular for running something like Starfield. Now I will say I watched some videos of people playing Starfield on Steam Deck, and while it does appear to function and be playable, the textures do look a little muddy, and the game does struggle a little bit compared to being run on other platforms. Hopefully this Steam update helps alleviate some of these issues and optimize Starfield a little more for the Steam Deck. I hope in the future Valve continues to improve the Steam Deck now that they have had some success with it, and I'm looking forward to hopefully a new gen Steam Deck in the future. But the most important thing is, I do think the foundation is laid for Steam Deck to be the future for PC handheld gaming. Now I also looked into the Asus ROG Ally, the Steam Deck's competitor to see if there's any updates on if it could run Starfield, and I didn't come across any. I have to imagine be able to run Starfield considering the hardware inside has a little more punch to it. But I suppose we shall see how support on that system looks for Starfield in the future. So for this next part, I want to steer away from updates with Starfield and see how Starfield is being received as a whole in the community. So I did a little bit of digging, and it appears Starfield is still doing decent overall. Maybe not exactly what people had hoped for, but it's doing alright if you look at reviews across the board, and it's also doing well sales-wise as it's being touted as Bethesda's biggest launch ever with over 6 million players. So regardless, Bethesda has made their money more than likely. Now, how important is their future reputation and making money in the future to them? Well, that's entirely up to them. We will have to wait and see how that unfolds. I really do think what Bethesda does in the future will do a big part in dictating how this game will be remembered. I know recently it was review bombed, but I'm not entirely sure why. It appears some people find it dull or boring to explore. I could definitely see that. Bethesda games in the past, even ones I love like Skyrim, would somehow have an empty feeling in them at times. Everything else was so good and moments in the games were so good that it was typically overlooked by me. The exploring, the music, the lore are all the things I really loved in Bethesda Game Studio series, like Fallout and the Elder Scrolls franchises. I do think maybe older gamers like me who played Bethesda games in the past kind of expect this, sadly, and you would hope Bethesda addresses this area some more. However, if you're very new to Bethesda Game Studio games, then this might be disappointing to you, especially if you bought into the marketing hype of Todd Howard. I think it's important to go into games like this with certain expectations, and to be fair, it took Bethesda Game Studios like 100 years to release the next big game from them, so a lot of time was lost there. I can totally understand why some people find it boring or dull, as someone who has typically loved their games in the past. I can admit they have dull moments in them. Bethesda games tend to be big, but at times full of boring fetch quests or dull, plasticky NPCs. Anyways, I'm personally withholding my verdict a little more until I finish the game and do a game review. I want to have some time to really digest the game before I give my full, unfeathered opinion. But with all of that being said, this is just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think below. I would love to hear your opinions. Thank you all so much for watching, and don't forget that like and subscribe button below if you enjoyed the video. Hope to see you next time.